stinginess being considered here as an infirmity, and a stingy person is maimed. He has something missing in the physical body. It is, when we come back to Islam again, a religion of truth. And I told you at the beginning that our God's name is Haqq. And if you do not abide by it, that is not his fault. We may go around and try and deceive people and say things which we know are not true, but this is not the teaching of our God through his book. It is our fault. In Surah 23, which is Mu'minun, the believers, this is what God says in the Holy Quran. He has brought them the truth, but most of them hate the truth. We have, at every juncture of our lives, to sit back and think about the difference between what we are taught and what we are asked to do and what we actually do in real life, and see where our responsibilities stand. We have this natural tendency to distort reality and try and fiddle with it. God commands that we be true in faith. In Surah Bayina, faith is the next step or the next element which is closely related to truth when we apply it to our relationship with God. Then a social dimension in it when we relate it to mankind and society. In this stance, we remember Polonius's famous word in William Shakespeare's play Hamlet, when he says to his son Laertes, departing from Wittenberg to Paris, where he will be dallying with younger people, I quote him, "To thine own self be true, and it must follow, as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to anyone else." And I believe that this can apply to Muridiyah if we compare it to other creeds and even within Islam to other denominations. The tremendous economic and social development of our brotherhood is basically laid upon this acceptation of truth and reality the way they are, and the absence of fear in what we do and say wherever we go. These secular lines by Shakespeare are not canonical, but they certainly shed some light on the interactive dimension of truth for the believer. Then we have another important dimension in this process. It is knowledge and education, how and why they should be acquired. This is the core of Islamic society. Islamic ethics has three pillars here: peace, knowledge, and labor. And education is the safe way to science and the different forms of truth. When we acquire science through the right channels of schooling, we can distinguish the different forms of truth. In a note to verse 51 of Surah 69, Haqq of the Holy Quran, Yusuf Ali writes the following: "All truth is in itself certain, but as received by man and understood with reference in man's psychology, certain may have certain degrees. There is the probability or certainty resulting from the application of man's power of judgment and his appraisement of evidence. This is what he calls ilmul yaqeen, certainty by reasoning or inference. Then we have the certainty of seeing something with our own eyes, sending us back to seeing is believing. This is ainul yaqeen, certainty by personal inspection. Then there is the absolute truth with no possibility of error of judgment or error of the eye. the absolute truth, which is aqul yaqeen. A good education will at least help us identify the first two, which are indispensable if we are to lead a righteous and useful life. Then we have one of the basic creeds of Muridiyya, which is Islamic. These two, labor and action, are the opposites of idleness and laziness, which are condemned even by secular principles. They stand on their own rights as sine qua non for any system, whether it be economic, political, religious, social, or else. And this aims for progress and development. Labor and action are not seen here as aiming at dry and sterile materialism. They give value to man in a religion where the accumulation of material wealth is useless unless it puts man on the pinnacle and allows him to worship God and help his fellow man. Welfare is good if it is used properly because the body and its needs are used to reach the soul. And the question is, what do we do with what we have? Physical man and his natural needs are not the measure of everything, and whoever limits his goodness to that can waddle around with the animals. Islam is, in addition, a spiritual religion, and it points the way to God and to his commands. We move to another level where we talk about tolerance and respect. We live in an age where the ego, that is the way the person feels himself and sees himself as opposed to the other, is very powerful, and very often people try to dictate to individuals in space and time what their ego wants. We then have a spreading of greed and pride, which whisper together in our ears, telling us at every juncture, you are the best, you are the greatest. Just do it, whatever it takes. You are the most powerful. Just do it. Only the goal counts. People forget, under the spell of the ego, that the end does not always justify the means. The end, as somebody said, is already in the means from an Islamic perspective. You cannot reach right by doing wrong. Whatever your goal or your target, the road you must follow to reach it must be a clean, acceptable road where you cannot lie, you cannot use violence, etc.